Hi, everybody. It's Maggie Sterner, Brandon Business Coach, and welcome to today's episode of That's What's Up with That. Yay, I'm so excited. And my guest today is the fabulous, fun, and smart facilitation trainer, consultant, and coach, Marley Williams. Marley's going to share her what she calls 5 pillars of transformational facilitation. But before we get started, I have a little housekeeping. My webinar producer, Erin Cafferty, is online with us. If you think of questions while Marley and I are talking, post them in the chat box. Marley may have a couple of things she'll ask too. So, use the chat box at will. Erin will be keeping track of your questions, and Marley will answer as many as she can during the webinar and towards the end. We're all very free-flowing here. If you have any technical issues, you can ping Erin privately in the chat box, and she will sort you out to the best of everybody's ability. I have everybody muted, but check anyway and make sure that your microphone is muted. We'll turn you back on if you have a question to ask. If you know how to turn yourself back on, even better. If you're in the Zoom room and you're showing up as a phone number, if you can, and if you know how, but don't sweat it, rename your phone number as your name. We just like to know the names of the people who are in the room with us. Sometimes, That's What's Up with That goes a little more than an hour. If anyone has to leave right before 1 p.m. Eastern, we're going to give away gifts Marley has for you and let you know about the next webinar before the top of the hour. P.S. Marley has a spectacular gift. She's going to be giving away a $500 scholarship to her epic facilitation retreat in Portland, Oregon, April 18th through 21st. There are only a couple of spots left, and Marley's going to tell you how to apply for that before the top of the hour, so stay in the room. And yes, it means going to beautiful Portland if you're not from that area. And yes, blow your own mind and do that if you happen to be accepted for the facilitation retreat. And if you don't live there, I've gone on retreats and I've gone to Marley's amazing Camp Yes, and they were way out of my geographic area in Washington, D.C. And it's life-changing to do something just because yes. Like, okay, hell yes, I'm just going to go to Portland for this thing because the spirit is moving me. Yes is a powerful word. Marley knows all about that. Yes is one of her trademarks. Mm-hmm. So let's get right to it. I met Marley in 2016 when we were both members of the same entrepreneurs mastermind group. As soon as I met her, and this is a true fact, Mar, I said, oh my God, I want to be like her when I grow up. Except we share the same mantra, which is be yourself. So I'm here going to be myself, and Marley's going to be herself, and we all get to be like, model each other. And I was really honored to do my Live Your Superpower talk at Marley's first ever Camp Yes for Women. And that's where I really got to see her soar in her brilliance as a leader. And no kidding, a transformational facilitator. Girl knows how to hold a space for people to have fun and get transformation and learn a thing. I do a lot of speaking and presentations, and I've discovered what lights people up is partly about the content. Like, we all get hung up on the content and, oh my God, my PowerPoint slide presentations. And mostly it's about how I show up in the space. What I've discovered is the energy and passion and curiosity and sense of fun that I bring to the room is where people go, damn, because nobody ever quotes back to me some PowerPoint slide that they remembered. Marley is a master facilitator and the founder of the Epic Facilitator Academy, where she trains facilitators and event leaders how to bring their content to life. That's the key, to life. Her mission is to empower people to stop waiting for permission and start taking bold action in a room full of people who are there to hear the gospel you're preaching. So, welcome, Marley. Yay!
Woo! Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. And thank you all so much for being here, for taking the time out of your day. I know time is our most valuable asset and resource, in my opinion. So thank you. Thank you so much for showing up. We are going to dive right into the content that I have for you today. And so I invite you to get out a notebook, take notes. I really want this to be powerful for you. If you have questions, like we said, you can ask those in the chat box. And I'm going to be doing a lot of interactive things with us today because I am a professional camp counselor and interactive facilitator. So even though we're online, I'm going to try to make this as engaging as possible, which means we're going to use the chat box. I'm going to ask questions. And so my hope is that I'm going to do about 25, 30 minutes of content. And then I really want to do a lot of Q&A because it was super fun to read all of your responses. And I want you to walk away getting whatever you came here to get today. That is my commitment to you. And so maybe there's going to be a couple nuggets that you're going to get. And I invite you to listen for what it is that you need to get out of our time today. So with that, we are going to dive right in. So I'm going to share my screen with all of you beautiful people. All right.
Boom.
So just give me a thumbs up if you can see this. Maggie, we're good? Okay. I'm going to keep it in this mode because it means I can see you. And I want to see if I can also see the chat box. This is the thing that I was wondering if this is going to work. So
I think, Marley, if you click on the chat box down at the bottom of the screen, click on the little chat buttons, unless I'm seeing my own.
Let's see, chat. I can see the chat room now. Beautiful.
Okay, cool.
So I'm just having things and moving things around here. Beautiful. Thanks for your patience with the technology. All right. So I do have the chat, which is great because we're going to dive into some interactive things. So welcome to the Epic Facilitation Masterclass, where I'm going to be sharing with all of you the 5 pillars of being what I like to call an epic facilitator. Don't worry, I'm going to explain what I mean by that. And we're just going to dive right in because your time is valuable. So here we go. So first question that I would love to hear from you is, what types of events, workshops, trainings, and experiences do you facilitate and or want to be facilitating? Is it meetings at work? Is it transformational retreats? Is it, do you have like a monthly meetup group? I would love, so just all you're going to do is type in the chat box, what types of events, workshops, trainings, and experiences do you facilitate? All right, Gregory says men's circles. Kim says, I teach sales workshops for non-sales client-facing people. Beautiful. Negotiation skills workshops for client groups. Facilitate at nonprofits. Margot, Susan, thank you for sharing. Heather talks about presentation design and delivery. Awesome. I love that. Kim does amazing workshops for teen girls. Present findings of policymakers. I'm a statistician, but I'm not boring. Katrina, I love that. Beautiful. Meetings at work, conference calls, volunteer meetings. Facilitating a presentation at your alma mater coming up. That sounds exciting. Public speaking, communication workshops. Awesome. So I think the thing about facilitation is I'm trying to bring sexy back to facilitation, because when we hear the word facilitation, it's like how to lead a boring meeting 101 and like, here's the agenda. And this is like, to me, what it means to be an epic facilitator goes way beyond that. And what Maggie was saying, really looking at what is the stuff beyond the content and who are you being as that leader, as that facilitator. And that's really what we're going to dive into today. So thank you for sharing. And thank you just for doing the work that you do in the world. We need you, and we need you in your magic and in your gifts, and sharing that in the most like aligned and authentic way possible. And that's my intention for our time today, is that you feel kind of more lit up and more inspired and more motivated, not just about the content, but about how you are creating that experience and delivering that content such that it really creates a transformational experience. So I have a few community agreements for us all today. The first one is just to be open, right? Like some of you may have been facilitating workshops for a long time. I've been doing this for over 15 years. So I invite you to have an open heart and an open mind to take and get whatever you need to get today. For you to be present, I know that is one of the hardest things to do on webinars is like, I have 18 million things going on and text and buzzing. So I really invite you to be as present as possible. So turning off your notifications and just be here now. Beautiful. And the third one that I mentioned is to be engaged. We're going to do some interaction, love to do some Q&A, maybe even some live coaching with you towards the end. So when I ask you questions, fill it out in the chat box and I'll read your answers, and maybe we can have some people share their takeaways at the end verbally and in the chat box too. So our community agreements are to be open, be present, and be engaged. So if I can just get a thumbs up, a visual for those of you who I can see, we're on board, we're ready to go, ready to dive in. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So this is our next question. This is the interaction part. So what inspired you to be here today? What inspired you to take the time out of your day, and or what are you hoping to get out of our time today? I know that maybe some of you answered this in the questionnaire when you registered for the webinar, but I would just love to hear from a handful of people. What inspired you to show up today? And is there anything that you specifically want to receive? And this is such a great question to ask as a facilitator when people are choosing to attend your workshops. I know that some people lead workshops where people are choosing to attend versus being required to attend. But inviting people to really remember, okay, what inspired me to show up today? Katrina says, because I met Maggie once and think she's awesome. I'm not quite as bold, but I like her style. Nicole says to be me in my presentations and not too rehearsed. Beautiful. Sherry, Marley fan. I'm a fan of yours too. Booking more facilitation and speaking gigs, open to learning new things. I want to be able to present and lead workshops with more ease. Beautiful. So it doesn't totally drain me every time. Maggie is awesome sauce. Gregory says he goes through phases where he goes inside and time to come back out, Gregory. Let's do this. I love it. Always interested in learning, growing, and improving. Beautiful. Learn new tricks. Be more confident. I am bold and funny, but I work with stuffy feds. How to keep people engaged and awake, right? One of my things is how to lead workshops where people forget that they have a phone. We are so distracted, and most people are looking at their phones in a lot of different meetings, right? Alex says, more Marleyisms for my toolbox. Beautiful, beautiful. So whatever inspired you to be here, like I said before, thank you for showing up. Thank you and I invite you to just show up and play full out with us today. It's gonna be fun. All right, so we are gonna keep going. So my goal, my hope, my dream, my intention for you today is to give you a framework for what it means to be an epic facilitator, and for you to gain some insights into how to create and facilitate powerful experiences for others. So that's my goal for you. That's my intention for you. And as a facilitator, I'm gonna do a little bit of naming what I do and why I do it along the way without diving too deep into that. So having community agreements is something I always recommend. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And knowing what is your goal? What is your goal or intention with the groups that you're meeting with and facilitating? I get on these facilitation breakthrough sessions with people and they're like, Marley, just give me some activities. Just give me some things to do with my people. And number one question I ask people is, what is your goal? What is your goal or intention? So it's always a good thing to come back to as a facilitator to remind yourself, why am I doing this? Where do I want to bring people? So this is our goal for our time today. So what is an epic facilitator? An epic facilitator is someone who empowers possibility and inspires connection. So in my opinion, being epic means like you are empowering people to really expand into what is possible for them. And you're holding and creating the space that inspires people to connect with themselves, to connect with the people in the room, and maybe to connect with a larger mission or purpose or something bigger than them. And for those of you who, it's like, well, what is it? What is a facilitator? What does that even mean, right? A lot of people want to do speaker training, and a lot of people do coach training. And to me, facilitation is this like beautiful blend of both. And the root word of facilitator or facilitate is facile, which means to make easy. So as a facilitator, you are someone who makes it easier or less difficult for something to transform or evolve or change. You're holding that space. You're making it easier for people to grow and expand into, whatever that goal or intention is that you have for them. So being an epic facilitator is really the art, and I would say the heart, of creating powerful, engaging, and meaningful experiences that actually change people's lives. So you're, as that epic facilitator, making it easier for people to grow, change, evolve, or expand, because this is the thing that drives me bonkers. In the world of personal growth, personal development, there's a lot of information. There's a lot of content, so to speak. And I believe that our greatest gift and job and goal is to help people integrate and apply that knowledge and information so that their life is actually different when they walk out the room. And that's always my intention as a facilitator, is like, what will be different when they leave here? What will be different? And who do I need to be to create that transformation for them? So I just wanted to give you kind of an overview and a framework of what my definition of being an epic facilitator is. And I have a question for you before I dive into my 5 pillars, which is, why does this matter? Why does it matter to you to develop the skill to master being like an epic facilitator? I would love to hear in the chat box, why does being an epic facilitator matter to you? Why is it important? What difference can it make for you in the work that you do? What difference can it make for your people that you serve, your clients, your community? Really get into this, like, this matters, and this is why it matters. Heather says, so you don't waste your time or the audience's time, right? Like, you show up with this what is the stand that you want to take for people in the world, right? And you operate and speak and facilitate from that place. Like Maggie says, it's not what we do, it's not what we say, it's the way we make people feel. That's the lasting transformation. That's the lasting impact. Gregory says, I want to help create for others what I want for myself. 100%. 100%. That's why I do what I do. We tend to create the things that we want to exist, right? Christy says, people spend a lot of time stressing on design, and I really can help make that process less stressful, for sure. Susan, because it will mean that my clients integrate the goals that they have for the training. It's all about integration, people. The way I show up and help others through a process is my unique gift, right? It's how you do what you do. The what is important for sure, but who are you being and how are you creating that experience, right? To move people to social change. Heck yeah, Rebecca, thank you for your work in the world. I aim for people to leave the room remembering 3 things so that it was worth their time and want to come back. Yeah. So having people become like raving fans of you and your work and telling everybody about it. telling all of their friends, filling your workshops, filling your events, filling your retreats, having them leave with that change and that transformation. And Kim says, I want to help people be more successful personally and professionally. So as a facilitator, I would really invite you to like lean into that question of like, why does this matter to you? Why does the work that you do matter? Because that is your anchor point. That is your true north for leading epic transformational events, of like really knowing like, what is that stand that you want to take for people? What is that commitment? What is your ultimate goal and intention? And having that guide your way. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So thank you all so much for the engagement so far. I appreciate reading in the chat box. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to run through the 5 pillars of how to be an epic facilitator, and then we'll do some Q&A. Does that sound good? All right, cool. We got thumbs up. How we doing? How we doing? We good? We good? Sometimes we just got to like dance it out. All right. Boom, boom, boom. Oh yeah. This is the slide before we dive into that. I'm just giving you a lot of teasers here. So I know that Maggie introduced me. Who the hell am I? Why do I love this stuff? I have over 15 years of experience as a facilitator, educator, mentor, coach, and was a wilderness guide for a number of years. So I would take kids on 21-day backpacking trips in the middle of nowhere. I've led people with brain injuries down the Colorado River. I've did a lot of crazy things in my 20s for sure. And I tell people I like legitimately have a bachelor's degree in outdoor education, which means I am a professional camp counselor. I have a degree in being a camp counselor, which is hilarious. But a lot of the things that I learned were how to facilitate groups, how to facilitate transformation. And the methodology was like doing that outside. But everything that I learned really has made me who I am today as a facilitator and a coach. And about 8 years ago, I decided to go back to grad school and actually got my master's degree in adult and higher education. So I come with lots of knowledge, and I've tried to condense this of like, if people just do these 5 things, I think it would make them a better facilitator. And that's what I want to share with y'all today. Pillar number 1. This is a good time to take notes if you haven't been taking notes already. So this is all about creating and holding what I like to call a brave space for transformation. A lot of people talk about the concept of a safe space, which I think is important, but I want to explain what I mean by a brave space. So a brave space is a place where learning and growth happens when people are uncomfortable. And sometimes people misinterpret being uncomfortable with being unsafe. And these things that I'm sharing with you today, they don't just happen. Meaning people don't just walk into a room being like, I feel like I can just be brave in this room full of strangers and a person that I don't know. You have to create it. And I'm going to give you like a hot tip for each of these pillars. I have like way more hot tips, and we're going to share with you my free guide to epic workshops that goes into more detail. So my hot tip, my action for how to create and hold a brave space is to create community agreements and or expectations. So like I did at the beginning, and mine were pretty simple because we have a short amount of time together. So those community agreements were be open, be present, be engaged. As a facilitator, what things do you feel like you need or the group needs in order to show up fully to that experience? And there's a lot of different ways to do community agreements. I just shared with you, here's the 3 that we're going to do today. And I asked for a visual confirmation. I asked for a thumbs up. Are we on board? We didn't go into depth with that because we don't have a ton of time. But if I were working with a longer group or like at a retreat that was a longer period of time, that's an invitation and opportunity to co-create those community agreements. But people don't walk in a room just like it really is being intentional with the type of energy you want to create and the type of space that you want to hold, is naming those expectations and inviting people to be like, we are on board, like get on the train. This is what we need in order for us to fully show up here today. So pillar number 1 is all about creating and holding a brave space for transformation to occur. And it's really about setting the tone and setting that intention. And community agreements is a great way to do that. So if you don't do that already, I invite you to come up with an action here would be like, what are your top 3 community agreements that you would want to share or bring in with the groups that you work with? Okay. So again, there's a lot of different ways to do that. I'm just keeping it simple for now so we can move through this into some Q&A and I can answer your specific questions about that, right? Beautiful. Moving on. Pillar number 2 is facilitating a strong sense of belonging and connection. One of the assumptions that I see a lot of facilitators make is that just because, we assume that just because people are in the same room, they're going to connect. But here's the thing. 80% of people would consider themselves to be shy and or introverted in some capacity. So 80% of people aren't just going to walk in a room and be like, hey, what's up? My name's Marley. What's your name? What do you like to do? Da, 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 da. Like, people aren't going to naturally do that necessarily. And so that's why it's so important. I mean, especially if you're doing live events, trainings, retreats, workshops, anytime I go to a live event, the content might inspire me to show up, but it's the connections and the community that last. And as a facilitator, I think that that's like such a missed opportunity is when we don't intentionally facilitate connection. I see so many networking groups and networking events where it's like they say doors open at 5:30, the event starts at 6. And from 5:30 to 6, people are showing up and then walking around awkwardly a lot of the time. And what I do to create a strong sense of community, connection, and belonging right out the gate is I give people a reason to connect right when they walk in the door. So I actually created my very own deck. Can you all see that? Maybe you can, if you can see my screen. And I can show this to you when we're not sharing a screen. But I created my own deck of cards called the Connect deck that all have like a question on the back. So when people walk into a room, literally I have a meetup tonight. My doors open at 6:30, event starts at 7. And instead of like that whole like informal networking, I call it intentional connecting. And when they walk in the room, they get to do a creative name tag. We check them in, and then they get handed one of these Connect deck cards. And I say, this card gives you permission to go up to random strangers you don't know and ask them the question on your card. This one says, where or when do you feel the most alive? So I would ask them this question. They would ask me their question. We would switch, and I would go find someone new. And I tell them, your goal is to meet 3 new people before we start at 7 o'clock. I use this thing all the time, and people say, I walked away connecting with more people than I ever have at any other event I've ever been to. And so having, I call it, it's really about like the power of a prompt. I think that people are hungry for connection, but we're scared of it at the same time. So as a facilitator, it's your job to make that connection easier, right? And there's a lot of different ways to do this throughout your presentations. And I'm going to get to that in pillar number 4. But, people are talking, I read through the comments, and how do I create a more engaging experience? Do it right from the beginning, right in the moment people walk in the door. That is when it started. It doesn't start at 7 o'clock. It starts at 6:30. And so I call that the unofficial start. So having something for people to engage with the moment they walk in the door. And that's so important. And people feel connected, and they're more open to learning when they feel connected to other people in the room. So that's pillar number 2. I'm going to keep moving so that we have time for Q&A. I get really excited about this stuff if you can't tell. Pillar number 3, I want to address this. The illusion of perfection. I think that more and more people just want you. They want your authenticity. They want your, what I would call your raw authenticity. Your being your vulnerageous self, which means like the courage to be vulnerable. And I love Brene Brown's definition of courage, which is to tell the story. Like the root word of courage is core, which is heart, which means to tell the story of who you are with your whole heart. And the biggest thing that the testimonials I get as a facilitator, the things that people say to me about my workshops, I love your energy. I love your energy, your presence, because I show up and I meet people in the moment. And a lot of what I do is like, okay, people have been asking the question of how much to plan, how much to not plan. And a lot of the work I do is I would call like almost intuitive facilitation, in that I'm so present with the energy that's showing up in the room that I'm able to meet people in the moment and be really present with them versus being super attached to my agenda or my outline. And so as a facilitator, I'm always finding that balance, like having a plan, being willing to go off the plan, come back to the plan. But my ultimate goal is to really practice that presence. And that means the last facilitator meetup that I did was all about building trust and rapport with your audience. And I gave them these 5 ways to reach more people, which were these like 5 ways to build trust and rapport. But what we were talking about was building trust and rapport with other people is an inside job. Meaning if you don't trust yourself completely, it's really hard for other people to trust you. So that's why I use the word practicing presence over perfection, because the thing is, it is a practice. And every time you facilitate, my intention, my hope is that it's a practice. Everything's an experiment. And sometimes we take ourselves too damn seriously to try to get it right or have it be perfect or have the right outline and the right this and the right that. Like, what if you just showed up fully with that stand that you take for people and gave them everything that you had? And that like you're practicing that desire to be really present with people rather than the illusion that it needs to be perfect. And I always say, you don't have to be perfect to be awesome. Remember that. So that's pillar number 3. There's a lot more that I could talk about for all of these things, but we're going to keep on moving. So pillar number 4, I mentioned that I would come back to this, is the importance of facilitating reflection and engagement activities. Okay, so like I told you, my degree is in outdoor education. As an experiential educator, we use this theory called the experiential learning model. And it really has 4 different components. The first one is we experience something. We go to an event, we go to a workshop. The second one is we reflect on that experience. We ask questions like, oh, what did I learn? How did I grow? And then we get to apply that, like, okay, where can I apply what I learned here tonight in my life? And then the fourth step is, how do I integrate this? What is like the next step that I'm going to take to integrate what I learned here? And here's the thing about our culture is we are just like we want to experience without reflecting, which means we aren't applying, which means we aren't integrating, which means we aren't transforming. I wish I had a slide with that model, and I'm going to make a note to myself that I'm going to have a slide about that next time. But see, I'm not perfect. I'm always learning and growing all the time. So a way to facilitate reflection and engagement, again, I'm going to share one hot tip for this. It's like the simplest thing, which is, hey, turn to a neighbor and share, what have you learned so far? Super simple. Super simple. So you could do pair shares. You could do a 60-second journal free write. What have you learned so far, and what questions do you have right now? So I could ask you that right now. What What have you, maybe write down in your journal, what have you learned so far? What questions do you have right now? I can have them write it down. I can have them turn to a neighbor. Great. I'd love to hear from a couple people. What have you learned so far in our time together, right? And I'm going to ask for takeaways at the end, so I want to move through these. But if you have learned things, I'm hoping you're learning things. That's the goal. But the idea that we assume that reflection, again, is just going to happen. Again, as a facilitator, making it easier for people to move through that cycle, reflecting on what they're learning throughout the experience. Okay? Super, super important. And the engagement part. There's so much that I could talk about engagement, but engagement is how adults learn. We don't necessarily learn from people just jamming information at us, but we learn through engaging with ourselves, engaging with other people, and it also switches up the energy in the room, right? There's like so many activities that I have for that I can't even go into right now. But hopefully that, again, for each of these pillars, I want to give you a tangible thing that you can do. Take away. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right. So pillar number 5 is creating intentional opportunities for integration and application. What do I mean by this? So at the end of your workshops or events or trainings, it's really creating the intentional space for people to integrate and apply what they learned. So, asking them again, and this is similar to the reflection piece, but what's one thing that you're going to do differently when you walk out this room? And so there's a lot of things that I do sometimes at the end of my talks. All right, I'm going to give you like a really hot tip right here. I'm going to try to explain this. Okay, so I have these things. I don't know if you can see them again, if you can see my screen, but I have these things called Stoke quotes. And a lot of my presentations, I leave one of these on the table or under their chair, and I leave it face down, which it's blank on the back. And then at the end of my presentation, I have them find their gift, find like the Stoke quote that they have, and then they write down what's one action that they're going to take when they leave here. And they write it on the back of the card. I have them make a buddy. This is their accountability buddy. I have them take a selfie with each other with their Stoke quotes. And I have them make a commitment to text or send a text message within a week or 2 weeks from that day, asking them if they did the thing. So I just created this really powerful moment for people to write down an action they're going to take, to connect with someone, and to be held accountable for that action. Really, really, really powerful. That's like one of my hottest hot tips. Hope you all like that one. But, it's like really inviting people to integrate and apply what they learn and take that into their life and really ask, like, what's going to be different now that you know this information, or now that you've had this experience. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so here's the overview. Here are the 5 pillars. So if you didn't write this down, you can take a screenshot of this. I think, Maggie, I'm happy to send this out to people. I don't know if they want it. So what I would love to do is, at the end, I ask my audience, and I'm going to ask you all the same thing before we go into Q&A. Based on what I shared with you today, and I know it was fast, I know it was a lot, what is your 1 degree shift going to be as a facilitator? So maybe there are some of the things here that you're already doing, and maybe the thing about facilitation, and I love geeking out about this stuff, there's always room for improvement. There's always things that I can be doing differently. So I'm going to share the 1 degree metaphor with all of you, which the idea is that if you were on a sailboat, which you can see right here, and if you change your course just 1 degree, over the course of hundreds of thousands of miles, you can end up in a completely different place. So I'm going to really encourage you, out of all of the things that maybe you heard today, what's a 1 degree shift, one new thing that you're going to apply or integrate in your next event, in your workshops, in your trainings, in your retreats. just choose one thing, right? So you don't have to leave here feeling like I have to do all the things. Maybe you want to do all the things, but start with one. So I want to hear a couple 1 degree shifts here. I love it. I love it. So Kim says the challenge about how to apply and integrate, including the challenge about, I love it. I love the brave space versus safe space. Awesome, Kim. The idea that I don't need to make anything happen, just show up and take a stand for it. Heck yeah. Focus on being present, sharing your story. Take more time to set the tone and establish expectations at the beginning. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Christy. Yes. Setting the tone, establishing expectations, creating the time and space to do that, and not assuming that that's just going to happen, right? Daphne says, just being myself and not worrying about being perfect. I tend to that. One thing, create one agreement for my group. Beautiful. I will bring a reflection and engagement activity to the workshop I'm teaching next week. Boom. Accountability buddies. Engagement. What are you learning? What will you do differently when you leave here? So good. So good. I love it. I love all of you. Thanks for sharing your 1 degree shifts. Feel free to keep sharing those.
I love you, Marley. I have to tell you right now, I am super lit up AF hearing all of the things you're talking about. What I love most is the simplicity, right? These are not memorizing complicated things, having more PowerPoint slides. It's just about the big takeaway that I'm hearing is, how are you showing up energetically? Let your passion fly, right?
100%.
What's up in the room right now with you is your passion is all like, yeah, baby, more of that, right?
Yeah.
That's what's engaging. We're all going to walk away with tips, but what we're getting is lit. It's like, oh my God, I can't wait now to go implement all of the wonderfulness that Marley has just shared.
That's my hope. That's my goal. That's my intention. That's the stand that I want to take for people. And it's like, as a facilitator, like, show up and play full out. I have been to way too many boring AF workshops and presentations, and I'm over it, man. Like, we got to change the paradigm. So I want you all to show up and play full out in your workshops and retreats. That way people are like, mind blown, heart expanded, possibilities are endless. So I have one last little slide for all of you, and then I want to do an unshare screen and do a little bit of Q&A, maybe live, of having people ask me questions.
Yes, live, please.
But I just wanted to give people a little reminder, because we forget this sometimes, is that you are awesome. So that's my little, I always have to give a pep talk. And then
Marley, I could eat you up with a spoon. You're so awesome.
Oh, you're so awesome too. Okay, so we're going to dive into, I'm so glad that we have time for Q&A and questions and all the things. And I'm going to do a stop share. And thanks for all of your comments. Someone just said this is the best webinar. Kim, hands down, best webinar ever experienced. Maggie, shoot. Dance it up. Celebrate. Okay, I'm going to do a stop share here. Okay, we are back. Hi, everybody. What's happening? Okay, so I would love if anyone, so here's the thing. So you can either raise your hand, or you can, raise your hand if I can see you. And if your video is off, you can raise your hand over in the thing under participants. I think you can raise your hand and then we can talk about it. If you have specific questions or you want to talk anything out, or you have questions about the 5 pillars or anything that I talked about, we'll do a few minutes of Q&A before we tell you the stuff about the retreat, if you're wanting to do a deep dive into all of this magic.
I think if anybody just
are you raising your hand, or were you just saying hi? Okay, cool.
There was actually one question from Katrina. It was in the middle of your talk.
Okay, great.
Wanted to know some ideas on how to get busy people who are your clients to stick to the time allotted. And maybe she can expand on that a little bit more if you don't understand the question.
So is it as a facilitator sticking to the time allotted, or?
Yeah, Katrina, I just unmuted you.
Okay, hi. Yeah, hi everyone. My question was that my technique is I bring a leave behind. So I'm not really focused so much on facilitation, which I know that's what this webinar is about. But when I go to meetings and I'm delivering my findings to policymakers, it's a known reality that people are going to be arriving the meeting late, they're going to be leaving early, and people are going to come grab them out because they need to call the White House or whatever the thing is that, is real. So my technique is I bring a leave behind because I know that's just a known quantity. So my leave behind is like, hey, whatever all the content is that you missed, this is what you actually need to know. And this is the teaser of why you might want to let that call go 15 minutes and stay in the room. But I forget what the question was that I put in the chat, but I guess it's just when there's a fixed time, any thoughts on how to sort of prompt people to arrive on time and not to leave early? I mean, it's not really about disrespect. It's that there's just so many competing priorities.
Okay, the question you had, Katrina, I'll just reframe it for you. Ideas on how to get busy people who are clients to stick to the time allotted, right? How do they, sounds like what you're asking is how do you get them to be on time and stay till the end, yes?
Yes, correct.
Are you within the organization or an outside person coming in?
This is an outside person coming in. They're my clients.
Yeah.
So I've done a study for them, and I know they really care, but again, this is like high level. They're being pulled in many directions. So their staffers usually are left in the room, and it's their staffers' job to then take notes and et cetera. But it's really awesome when they're in the room and they're like, oh, yeah, my chief of staff is pulling me out. And they're like, no, actually, I want to stay and listen. I want to learn more about this. That to me is an aha and a thumbs up moment.
For sure. I would say it's like revisiting some sort of expectations, honestly, of like, what do you expect from them? What do they expect from you? And say like, and this is why it matters. Because it's just I notice that people come late, they leave early, and sometimes if we have consistent, if we're meeting with the same people over and over, reestablishing those expectations with them can be one thing that you can do to help with that, possibly.
And it's what I'm hearing you say, Marla. It's like, Katrina, one of the things it's our job as facilitators, presenters, or whatever, our job is to show up as a leader holding space. They're looking to us for the leadership and the guidance for what the container looks like. Is that what you're saying, Mar?
100%. Yeah.
So, and it can be very stretchy to do that and make those requests. What I've seen a leadership program I did, when leaders hold a firm stand and show up clear with a structure, the room there's a relief that people feel. The room gets very wobbly when somebody's not holding a firm container, right?
Yeah.
So I guess our challenges, and maybe Marley might have some tips for, I think just setting clear expectations and telling people, here's, we start on time, we end on time, and, and then you have to follow through on that.
Yeah.
That's your job.
Yeah. And Anne had an additional thought too. Thanks for sharing, to let them know the specific value you add to the content to encourage them to stay. Right. And I think it's also for you, I think it's both letting them know, but what I was hearing you say is, what is the value of people being in the room with you? That it's like you have this 2-dimensional piece of paper versus a 3D. Like they can ask questions and they can engage and they can really get this in a different way than just having this takeaway. And so maybe that takeaway is kind of a little bit letting them off the hook. I think you should totally still do it. I'm not saying don't do it. And it's kind of that leadership and that energy of who do I need to be for them to like not want to leave this room? It's like, who do I need to be for people to forget that they have a phone? Who do I need to be for them to be like, oh my God, this is like the best hour of my month or my week. I love it when, Katrina comes in and shares all these like juicy nuggets with us. It's the best. It's like the best, right? Knowing that everyone, no matter what you're facilitating, we're always up against competing priorities and attention. People are pulled in a million different directions. So it really is energetically like being that leader in that space. So I hope that helps a little bit. And maybe it's like a 1 degree shift of like trying something out and seeing how it goes. Sound good?
Yeah, I was just looking for my mute button, but yeah, thank you.
Marley, I think you just muted yourself, honey.
I did. There we go. Anyone else have any thoughts or questions for me specifically, or any support that you need right now with what you're working on or what you're up to in the world?
Hey, Erin, were there any questions that people submitted before when they registered for the webinar?
Yes, there were a lot of good questions.
Cool.
So let's see. Let's find a good one. So this is a good one. How to condense content.
Yes.
So Marley and I were talking about that earlier. Content versus, what's the right ratio of content versus engagement.
Oh my gosh. Never, please. Okay, I'm going to just share this with everybody. Never, ever do the thing at the end where you say, oh my gosh, we ran out of time. We had so much to cover. I'm sorry, we're not going to get to it. They don't know that. And now you're just thinking, you're making them think that they've just missed out on something. They don't know. So just, anyway, note to self, don't do that. And less is more. And I think that that's like when you start with the clarity of like, what is the ultimate goal? What is the ultimate intention that they walk away with? Start there. And then balancing that content with the engagement, right? And I would stick with 3 to 5 kind of main points. And how can you bring those things to life? And create an opportunity for people to engage with that content. But starting with that clarity and that focus of here's the goal, here's the intention, here's what I want them to walk away with, and then create the content. And don't try, like if you have an hour, create an hour's worth of content, which is less than 2 hours, right? So I think it's knowing that sometimes things take longer than you expect. And that's often what I see is the case. Some people talk really fast and they're like, oh my gosh, I thought this was going to last an hour and we're half an hour in. What do I do now? Great. What have you learned so far? Right? So as a facilitator, I think the best thing that you could do is have like a giant toolbox of reflection, engagement, like activities where you can draw from those at any time and feel like, oh, I'm not attached to the agenda or the content, but I can pull from these tools really to help bring that content to life. And so asking like, well, what is it that I really want them to know or get or feel when they walk away from here?
Hey, Marley, I'm just taking a note of the time. And
Yes.
I know some people may have to bounce at exactly the top of the hour.
For sure.
And I want to make sure we get to talk about all the beautiful gifts you brought us, including your retreat.
I love it.
How that's going to work. Can you take, and Erin, Erin's going to post links to things for everybody into the chat box. So Marley, I want to hear about this beautiful, you have a scholarship for somebody?
Yeah, I do. So I love retreats and I love facilitation. And so I decided to weave the two together and create what I'm calling the Epic Facilitator Training Retreat, where it's this beautiful blend of content, of brainstorming. Like if you're workshopping like a retreat or other workshops or events that you're putting on, actually crafting, designing, putting together your workshop at the retreat, and then practicing facilitating an interactive exercise or activity and getting feedback on it. So it's kind of like content, brainstorming, planning, and feedback and practice, right? So this beautiful blend of walking away feeling like I have this idea I'm ready to launch out into the world, or I have a way that the ideas that the retreats or workshops that I already have, I can make them even better, and really enhancing your confidence as a facilitator. So it's 4 days in the woods at this beautiful retreat center, just like at 45 minutes west of Portland. And it's a really intimate group. So it's not like 100-person conference where we just like PowerPoints, information, blah, blah, blah. It's like really, really individualized and specific to whatever it is that you're working on and whatever you want to walk away with. Alex is going to be there. I can see her right here, and she's in this webinar. I'm so stoked. And so I'm offering anyone in this group who is interested to apply before the end of the month, which means by the end of the weekend. And
the date on that, I want to just make
March
sure.
31st.
31st, there you go.
So it's in a couple days, but it's a very short application, maybe 5 minutes. All you have to do is fill out the application, and you will get a $500 scholarship off the cost of the retreat. And the retreat is all inclusive: lodging, food, campfires, hot tub, outdoor shower. Like it's going to be so, the place is just spectacular. So if you are interested, all you have to do, so the cost of the retreat in total is $1,750, but with your $500 scholarship, it brings it down to $1,250 for all 4 days, 3 nights with me in the woods. And we will do carpools from the airport out to the retreat center.
Oh my God. If I could be there, I swear to God, I would be there. I'm going to be out of town for 2 weeks in May. Otherwise, girl, I would be there. And I want there to be,
people
might want to be another one for the end of this year.
Yeah. So people might want to know the dates. The dates are April 18th through the 21st. So I just put that in there. And so Erin's going to put the link, which is so she put the link in there, and that'll take you to a website. And then there's an application button on there. There's no obligation to apply. So if you apply and it doesn't work out or it's not a good fit or whatever, now's not the right time, it's all good. But I would encourage you, again, like Maggie said, if your heart is like, oh my God, I mean, this is literally just the surface and you want to take this even deeper. If you feel inspired, I would just encourage you to apply by the end of the weekend, and we'll hop on the phone next week and be like, hey, what are you working on? What are you up to? What are your goals? What would you want to get out of this? What would make it worth it for you? And then we'll get you signed up and I'll get you all the info. But I may not, like, people are like, oh, are you going to do it again? I'm like, I might not do it again in 2019 because we have Camp Yes in September. And so that's my next big event.
Camp Yes.
All that to say, I would encourage you to apply and come if you can make it, because it is going to be epic for sure. So that's that piece. And then the guide. So I created, I think it's like 7 or 8 page guide to creating epic workshops, which gives you kind of like an overview of here's what a 2-hour workshop could look like. And here's all the things that I think about when I'm putting together a workshop. So that guide is free. It's a free guide to helping you create more epic workshops. So you can click on that link and put your email in there, and then the link to download the guide will be sent to you. So that is my gift from me to you. Oh, there's the link to check out Camp Yes.
Oh God, yeah. Oh my God. That was, I swear to God, Marley, that was one of the best experiences I've ever had. It was my first real camping experience. And I was, in my 60s to have my first camping experience. But to have that space with you, the fun, oh my God, it was like the best time I've ever had. And got to deliver my Live Your Superpower talk. Oh, speaking of which, while I still have you guys, just a couple of seconds. Next month on That's What's Up With That, before all y'all leave the room, I am doing the webinar. It's just going to be me. And there's something that's been making me crazy, which is how everybody's afraid to narrow their niche. Everybody's afraid to choose a niche. People are afraid, oh my God, I'm not going to have any clients if I don't work with everybody, blah, blah, blah. So next month, That's What's Up With That is narrow your niche to expand your target audience. How might that work? Because I promise you there are more people available to you in your target audience if your niche is super, super narrow. I always say my niche is an inch wide and 10,000 miles deep. I know what I do, who I do it for, and there are tons and tons of people in there who want them some of that. So, oh, here's Marley just posted something here too about camp. Yes, discount.
So my birthday is next week, and I'm doing a little birthday promo for camp. And there's 3 ways to pay to play at Camp Yes. So there are payment plans, and I'm offering $300 off, not just the pay in full, but all of the payment plans between now and my birthday, which is on April 2nd. So you can essentially reserve your bunk for Camp Yes for as low as $135 a month. So it just helps you spread out the payment for Camp Yes over time instead of paying all at once. So again, I'd love for you to come to the retreat, and that's like coming up next month. And you can come to the retreat and Camp Yes, and that would be awesome because then we get to hang out more.
And who doesn't want more Marley? Everybody wants more Marley. So
yeah, baby.
You know, this is the part, you know, where we can wrap up. If people have more questions, you know, sometimes we go a little bit over on That's What's Up With That, which is super cool. I leave it to the room, to the space to decide what it wants to be. So if anybody has any more burning questions, please post them in the room or unmute yourself right now and just popcorn style. We could take questions while we have Marley live.
Christy actually had a question. If she wants to mute herself, I can just read it. So she asked, how do you check in to stay present throughout a facilitation?
Good question, Christy. One of the things, and I'm actually going to teach this tonight, is, there's a couple simple ones. One is honestly to take a deep breath. So when we take a deep breath, we get back into our parasympathetic state. And when we're shallow breathing, we're in a kind of a fight or flight response. And so sometimes putting your hand on your heart, taking a deep breath can really help ground you in that energy. The other thing that I do is feeling roots come out from the bottom of my feet into the earth, through all the way down to the core of the earth. And I ask sometimes, like, what do I need right now? And maybe that's trust. And so then I pull trust all the way back up through my roots and up through my whole body. And I can do it in these are 5-second or 30-second things that you can do to get present, get grounded, get connected. These are things to do before your presentation, and they can be things to do during if you're feeling kind of off or wobbly. And I love it. When I think about what is the worst thing that could happen, it's people always say I'm going to forget what I'm going to say. If you forget what you're going to say, hey, turn to your neighbor and give them a high five and tell them that they're awesome. Or if you're not a high five person, turn to your neighbor and share what you learned so far. Again, because it gives the group an opportunity to reflect and connect, and it gives you an opportunity to just chill and take a deep breath and be and regroup of oh, what was I going to do? Or what was I going to say? So those are a couple thoughts that I have for you on that. So hopefully those are helpful.
Any other questions for Marley while we've got a couple more minutes? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
There's a good one from Daphne Lee, who asked how to have a more commanding presence when you're an introvert by nature.
That's a great question.
Yeah, but she's just not as dramatic as some people.
Thank you, Daphne, for that question. And you're not alone. I get that question a lot. They're like, Marley, I'm not as energetic as you. What do I do? Be more you. So I think part of it is giving yourself permission that there's nothing wrong. I think that there's this illusion of I need to be a certain way to be a powerful facilitator. But I think it's not apologizing for who you are and really owning that. And I've seen amazing introverted facilitators, presenters, speakers. And I think the more that you anchor into, even if you're introverted or you're more reserved, there's still a bold stand that you can take for people in your own unique, authentic way, and sharing that, whatever that looks like for you. So some people see me being rah, 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 and I can be calm, grounded, connected, and still make a really powerful impact. So it's it's like giving yourself permission that like, I can be introverted and I can be bold. I can be quiet or reserved and I could still make a difference. So it's not seeing these things as mutually exclusive. It's just owning and embodying who you are, whatever that is, more. So I hope that helps anyone who feels kind of that way or has that question.
Oh, that was a beautiful way to explain it, Marley. We get to be all of the everything that we are in our own particular way. And you'd think that would be a simple thing to do. How you described it with the grounding, beautiful, perfect, and thank you. I think that's a great place to end our thing on this beautiful, philosophical, energetic way.
Beautiful.
Bartley, thank you so much for joining us today. You've been a gift to the room, and you've been a gift to me personally for a few years now. And having you here, like my motto is the people I want to have on my show are fun, energetic, and know their shit. And girl, you bring it. You bring it. And remember that That's What's Up With That. Narrow your niche to expand your target audience. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on That's What's Up With That. I love you all, and I hope to see you next month. Take care, everybody.
Thank you all so much.
Bye.